Hi folks, I'm Matt and welcome to My Expanding Universe, a show where I go through the entire EU in chronological order as best I know how. Folks, we're going to talk about, as El Wapo would say, a plethora of little short stories and tales here that really don't require me to talk too much about them. I don't have too much to say because they're very short here. So the first one was from Star Wars Tales 4. Now, if you know, I just said Star Wars Tales, which pretty much indicates what I think about this. It was written by Mark Evener and Sergio Arginos, and it's called Spare Parts. Now, in this short comic tale, I think it went 4 pages long, which explains why they needed 2 people to write it. Anyway, C-3PO and R2 come across some Jawas, they get captured, they disguise themselves as Jawas and escape. But did they? Because Jawas are coming right after them. You know, they're not fooled by their disguises. It's hard to tell where this story really should go. I talked to a friend of mine, Joe Bongiorno, about where he would put it, and he has it after Jedi, but he also agrees with me this would also be something like during A New Hope, maybe when they were on the Sandcrawler they escaped. And I originally suggested that, but here I don't really care because A, it's a Star Wars Tales, it really doesn't matter in the long run, and it's such a short story. I mean, 4 pages. Why did it need 2 people? I'm thinking this was it. I'm thinking maybe because Sergio Arginos, who helped write it, is also the illustrator. He's also the guy that drew the whole thing. So maybe he came up with the idea and they paired him with another writer. The reason I say this is sometimes when you're writing your first book, how you got your foot in the door is another writer kind of, you know, he kind of vowed for you, pledged you, said, hey, I'll help him out. I'll be with him here. So he kind of spoke up for him and said, okay, we'll both be pulling this project together. I say that because Rich Hanley told me a story where when his first book he ever wrote was with Charlotte Newcomb, and they wrote it together. You know, she was with him to help write the story, and that's kind of how he got his foot in the door. So I'm assuming it was something like that. And I mean, I know Star Wars Tales did a lot of that, so I've dogged it for how many years now? But Star Wars Tales, it seemed, did give extra people a shot. People who'd never written, you know, anything within the Expand universe, they got their first shot in Star Wars Tales. And I'm assuming this is what it was for, again, I don't know, but I'm guessing it was Sergio. So good for him, 4 pages, and here I am saying it's not that good. But hey, it's probably better than anything I could write. So let's move on to the next one-shot comic book written by John Wagner called the Jabba Tape. You see, shortly after Jabba's death, everyone, the Hutts, are fighting for his land, his possessions, and Big Jizz and Spike, that's right, they're back. They plan to hijack a ship containing a ton of art from Jabba. Now, oddly enough, this can connect to Ryder Wenham's Adventures in Hyperspace Book 3, the one that never got released. I mean, it did get released on the StarWarsTimeline.net, the unfinished book, but it just never got a publication on it. Because in that, if you recall, Han and Chewie are collecting art for Jabba. And so this could probably be where he was keeping it all was on this, you know, sail barge that Big Jizz and Spike are trying to hijack and take for themselves. So in a way, there could be a connection there. Now, you know, I'm no Leland Chee, but to me that makes sense if you connect those stories. There was no intention because, of course, Adventures in Hyperspace 3 never officially came out. But I don't know, it seems like those would tie in nicely here with the Jabba Tape. Now, is the Jabba Tape that good? No, it's really not. In fact, I never understood Dark Horse's weird obsession with making Jabba the Hutt comic books and things that revolve around Jabba. I mean, obviously there was a Jabba the Hutt fan there. It's like, this story needs to be made. It's like of all the one-shots, you couldn't think of something better to do. Anyway, it's an okay story. It's a forgettable story, but they decided it had to be made, so here it is. The next one I'm going to talk about is also a Star Wars tale written by Timothy Zahn. Oh, look out! It's called Mara Jade, One Night Out on the Town, and it's issue 1. This was in the first issue of Star Wars Tales. Now, in this, Mara Jade encounters Crix Maydeen, who has captured an Imperial governor. But Mara Jade knows that Imperial governor is also a traitor to the Empire. So Mara Jade is looking to get her vengeance and try to avoid Crix Maydeen as well. Now, these two are going to meet. Don't want to give too many spoilers. But what did I think about it? It's actually a pretty good story. Now, I'll be honest, Mr. Negative on Star Wars Tales here. I do have to admit that the first one, when the very first issue came out, I was impressed. There was a few things I remember in there thinking, oh, what's that? Ugh, what's that doing in here? But overall, I was like, okay, here we got a Mara Jade story from Timothy Zahn. Right. It looks like everything's, looking good, because I could imagine, okay, there's probably going to be a Baron Fale story from Stackpole in issue 2, an Aaron Alston story. Kevin J. Anderson will come back. He'll write something from Tales of the Jedi. I had all these grand visions of what Star Wars Tales could have been. Now, whoever made the decision to throw non-canon and canon stuff and shuffle the deck with the stories with sometimes even really bad art, I have no idea who decided to butcher that. But Star Wars Tales, it had a lot of potential and it ended up being a disastrous mess. Now, remember, not every story, but a lot of them. But when the first one came out, and actually the first couple issues, I was a little disappointed about a few things that came out and aggravated about stupid stories. But when the first one came out, I had high hopes for it because of a story like this. Now, is this a story that we need? Not really. It's just another Mara Jade, Hand of the Emperor, or post Hand of the Emperor, when she's lost and trying to find her way storyline. I get it. It's interesting. Mara Jade fans will love it. If it's okay, but like I said, when I was reading it, I was like, okay, well, here we have a relevant tale, not just some random tale or garbage tale. It's about Mara Jade, written by Timothy Zahn. The quality is there. And they should have kept up that quality as well. This would have been a perfect platform, if you think about it. Star Wars Tales would have been the perfect platform for any author who said, well, you know what? I want to write just a little extra chapter to my book, or a little ending to my book. Kind of like how the Star Wars Insider was, right? That usually was a prequel or sequel or a little lost episode to kind of promote their book. Star Wars Tales could have done that too. Say, hey, you want to make a little prequel comic to your book, and we can advertise the book in the comic book. I don't know. I think Lucasfilm or Bantam at the time should have made that deal, because it makes sense that people buying the Star Wars comic books would also be interested in reading the novels as well. So I don't even know why that marriage was never made there, and why Tales wasn't put to better use, because it could have been something fantastic. In fact, at this point, all the West End Games people have gone and moved on. Why don't you grab a few of them and say, hey, you want to continue your stories, or give us ideas, or submit ideas, and we can get authors around them? I think that would have been interesting too. And actually, has there ever been a RPG comic book? It's a comic book, and then at the end it shows them in an action pose and shows all their stats. That'd be pretty interesting, and no one would ever do it, but you could also cut out that sheet, comic book, and then play as that character in your local RPG game. I don't know. Probably that could have worked as well. There's a lot of potential that Star Wars Tales could have had that they just never reached. They never even, it seemed a lot of times like an afterthought to throw all this stuff in there. But you look at issue 1, you're thinking, I see potential. I see greatness in this. And then it just, I guess no one cared. I don't know. The tragedy of Star Wars Tales. That's a video, but that's a video for another time. In fact, speaking of time, it kind of looks like I've already filled up enough time here. So I'll see you again with another video.